Hey, folks, this is rabble-rousing Rich Bergeron.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's the Tornado, Tony Pennicow.
And Psychic Tom Fedrick with his crystal ball unveiled.
And there will be no steel cage match. There will be no tag team boxing match. Mike Tyson is fighting a more reasonable opponent now. 8-round exhibition match against somebody his age, first of all. And second of all, well, I think he's a little younger, actually, Roy. But, and somebody that he never fought in his career. Roy Jones Jr. It's official. And I have not yet been able to see the promotional material, but apparently that's been going viral today and yesterday across the internet. It's official. I mean, it makes perfect sense. Roy Jones Jr. Probably definitely has the more recent experience, but he wasn't a heavyweight that long.
When Roy dabbled in heavyweight back in 2003, that was only not even a year after Tyson's lost to Lennox Lewis, and I think it was right after Tyson had fought Clifford Etienne, the Black Rhino, and knocked him out in 49 seconds. So Tyson was still a viable player back then, and I remember a discussion, and it was like no, I didn't see it happening. Like Roy went up to heavyweight at the time, almost for like a history grab. I'm going to take the champion with the least threat, which was John Ruiz, style-wise. Chris Bird was around that time too, but Chris was tricky. He was a southpaw, could make you look bad, and Ruiz was the better option because he. And then I remember a couple times people come up to me, will this bring out a Tyson fight? I'm like, no, I don't see that happening. And I was like, we're get this history grab, and then he's gonna, go back down the light heavyweight, which he ended up, weakening himself, and I think exacerbated his decline.
Well then, it's going to be interesting. Roy had been fighting pretty much, just to keep active, I think, and just to keep stringing along victories. But I don't think he fought anybody of note his last few years. That I can remember. Because I remember I
can't even remember any of his opponents the last few years.
Yeah, we've been putting just about every story of his in since we interviewed him. We were all hooked up to his promotional company. He had the Square Ring Promotions. He's got the hookup with the UFC now with Fight Pass. So we've been publishing his stuff promotional wise and fight wise for years, and it was one of those things where he usually fought on his own card. So you're not going to set yourself up to lose. So that'll be kind of interesting because it'll be, a little bit closer to live action, but at the same time, nobody's coming in there to kill him until now. So there might not be that much of an advantage there of the ring rust that Tyson obviously has more of. But yeah. That's going to be more interesting.
I think you're going to get more of a. I think you're going to get more of a show than when Tyson did that thing. What was it, about 7 or 8 years ago, or maybe even more than that, when he was going out there with Corey King Kong Sanders, and and Sanders basically even still wearing what they were wearing, like shirts and everything, and it was glorified sparring. I think Tyson might have scored like a knockdown in there or whatever, but even that was like questionable. So I think with this, because these two guys, even if they start playing nice, I think their egos are going to come out a little bit.
Possibly.
It makes sense.
Definitely.
Because because Roy can come out there and say, you know what, this is a fight that I could have had, 16, 17 years ago, and would have just really been a big part of his legacy. And Mike Tyson is still a name. Mike Tyson could be 85 years old and a walker, and someone says the name Mike Tyson, ears are going to perk. He just had a whole issue of Ring Magazine dedicated to him. In fact, the last 2 issues of Ring Magazine, one was called Facing Tyson, and it breaks down his whole career, his early career under Customato and Kevin Rooney, and then championship years, and then his decline and his loss to Buster Douglas, and then the comeback after prison, and then his leader. And it breaks. I started looking at it the other day. And then the issue before that, which I still got to read as well, it was called Tyson versus Tyson, and it was like divulging the matchup between Tyson Fury and Mike Tyson. Yeah.
All of them. Yeah, he's never out of the news, really. It's kind of like Floyd Mayweather, except when he's never out of the news, it's not because he's coming back all the time. That's just a recent thing, but with Mayweather, it's always about him coming back. But anyway, yeah, it's going to be a barn burner. One that didn't turn out to be a barn burner last weekend, Michael Nunn versus Pat Miletich. And it's kind of a sad state of affairs there for Miletich, because really the only thing that he injured or, made Nunn wince from was the kicks. He didn't really do very well with the striking. And then I found out, actually, kind of by accident, the same week of the fight, Miletich got pulled over and arrested for DUI. So, can't be doing that well mentally.
Yeah, no.
Going into a fight when you're getting DUI'd. And it was like his second offense, so I hope he gets that squared away. Yeah, it's nothing fun to deal with. Not that I have experience or anything, but I never had any issues with that. Yeah. So I found that out, and then I found out he lost the fight. But gotta love Michael Nunn. I mean, obviously he stayed in shape in his prison stint there, and he might be in the picture to do something, whether it be like, a gimmick fight with bare knuckle or another really serious fight at a bigger level. Would be a boxing match, would probably be better for him than a kickboxing, but he held his own from what I read. So good for him. Also, we had some unfortunate news for Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. Suspended indefinitely by the Nevada State Athletic Commission because he refused to take a test. So, until he is able to resolve those issues, he's under indefinite suspension. Anyway, yeah. Maybe he didn't want to get COVID from the needle. Anyway. Yeah, this continues to spiral into bad territory there, but I don't know. When you get put in these big fights and you continuously are not doing that great, maybe it's just time to just, all right, well, this is too difficult. Can't even keep up with the drug testing. What am I doing? Get out of it. Do something else. But anyway, yeah, this is a very long article, so I won't bore you with the details, but that's basically the gist of it. He refused the test. So, that's it. And we also had a UFC fight over the weekend. I didn't get to see a single fight, unfortunately. It's that busy. Saturday was one of my busiest days of the week. But anyway, I did read about Joseph Benavidez faring pretty much the same results against Davison Figueiredo different type of method. Technical submission, rear naked choke. Just 12 seconds left in the round. Round one, rear naked choke. Got slipped on, and that was it. Benavidez is not retiring. He's, not making any hasty decisions, but this is a heavy one. Davison Figueiredo goes to 19-1. Benavidez falls to 28-7. I guess you could say that was kind of how it was supposed to go. But Benavidez, he's got that problem with getting caught early in a lot of his fights. If he can't get through the first round, then it's a problem. But anyway, he'll be back. He's got the name recognition. A big surprise was Jack Hermansen dispatching Kelvin Gastelum by heel hook in just 1 minute and 18 seconds. Gastelum, of course, had to apologize. That's how bad the fight was. When you got to apologize, the fight's bad for losing quickly there. Did you get to see any of these, Tom?
No.
No, so.
And at least it would have been over a lot quicker than before. So I would have got a much better sleep.
Yeah.
Then you can tell I'm still mad about that Usman.
Yeah.
But no, I didn't catch these, but you don't see him bluffing anymore.
Yeah.
And Hermansen, I know has A-level, black belt level, and the catch been that. But I don't know about Gastelum. That maybe he's you got to look at results, and it just seems like maybe the last Stylebender really took a lot out of him.
Yeah. Well, at the very least, he's not having weight issues anymore. That used to be the big headline all the time. He was always missing weight. So that's out of the picture anyway. But yeah, he just got caught. I mean, a heel hook. Back in the day, like when I first started Fight News Unlimited, I used to laugh at shit like that. And I used to go to events being stupid and go to the after party being drunk and be like, I don't know what's so painful about a heel hook or a armbar. I don't know what the hell you guys are worried about. It doesn't even look painful. And then someone will put you in it eventually to show you that, yes, it hurts a lot. But it was...
Well, Rich, the dangerous thing about that is it's deceptive. Because by the time it really hurts, it may be too late.
Yeah.
Your knee tendon may have separated. Because I know sometimes I've been caught, and it's like, okay, well, all right, deep breathe. Then all of a sudden it's like, oh! And it's all outlawed in some jiu-jitsu tournaments for anyone below the black belt level. It's one of the most dangerous submissions.
Yeah.
But you just don't see it as much. Because guys have figured out, if you're going for my leg, I'm going for your face.
Yeah. Well, that was one of those things that in the Massachusetts circles, it was like everybody tried for it at least once in a fight. And if you notice, like all the Massachusetts fighters that have made it to the UFC, you'll notice, hey, geez, they do try that move off. Other than Brazilians, that's the only area that I know of where it was taught so much that it was just a regular to see it in a fight. But yeah, heel hooks, they hurt. They definitely hurt. Then we had Rafael Fiziev beating Mark Diakiese by unanimous decision. The female fight on the card, Ariane Lipski beating Luana Carolina by a knee bar submission. 1 minute and 28 seconds into that one. Then we had another unanimous decision for Askar Askarov over Alexandra Pantoja. Roman Dolidze over Kadis Ibrahimov by TKO from a knee and punches. Again, late into the first round, 4 minutes and 15 seconds. Grant Dawson beat Nad Narimani by unanimous decision. Joel Alvarez beating Joe Duffy by guillotine choke, 2 minutes and 25 seconds in. A lot of first round finishes. Jeez. Everything was either third round full fight or first round. Fourth fight of the night, Brett Johns over Montel Jackson by UD. Amir Albazi in the third fight of the night got a triangle choke submission over Malcolm Gordon. Again, very late in the fight. 18 seconds left there. Triangle choke. First round, 18 seconds. Second fight, Arman Tsarukyan beating Davy Ramos by unanimous decision. And then we had a majority decision. Finally, one judge disagreed. Sergey Spivak over Carlos Felipe. And this weekend we have, of course, Fight Island continuing with a big one. UFC on ESPN 14. Light heavyweights, I believe these guys are. Robert Whittaker and Darren Till. Light heavyweight, or is that middleweight?
Middleweight.
Middleweight. Okay. Robert is 20-5. Darren Till is 18-2-1. And then we got a couple legends. Mauricio Hua and Antonio Rogerio Nogueira fighting each other. Hua 26-11-1. Nogueira 23-9. And if this is a win for Nogueira, you've got to think this is his last fight. He is an old soldier. Rua, I think, is a little bit younger, but his brother already retired. So, yeah. This might be a loser leaves town fight.
Yeah.
But, yeah, a lot of action on them two. A lot of zombie fights, too. They were not the best at defense, either one of them, in their primes. Anyway, then we have another interesting one, Alexander Gustafson and Fabricio Verdum. Verdum had the title briefly, kind of faded off into the distance, kind of got figured out. He is 23-9-1 now. Alexander is 18-6. Of course, Gustafson had the fight with John Jones that some say he won. The rematch was nothing like it, so he's had a tough go about it, but looking to get back up into the picture if he can. Undefeated female fighter here, Marina Rodriguez, coming in at 12-0-2 in the 12th fight of the night. She's fighting Carla Esparza, who is 16-6, a game warrior there, so welcome her into the fold there. And we've got Paul Craig, 12-4-1, fighting Gadzhimurad Antigulov. Probably butchering that one. 20-6 is his record. It's a stacked card as far as records go. Geez, a lot of experience on this card. Alex Oliveira in the 10th fight of the night. He's 21-8-1, fighting Peter Sabota, who's 17-6-1. And we got Khamzat Chimaev, 7-0, fighting Rhys McKee, who is 10-2-1. Francisco Trinaldo, 25-7, fighting Jay Herbert, who is 10-1. Jesse Ronson, 21-10, fighting Nicholas Dalby, 18-3-1. Tom Aspinall, 7-2, fighting Jake Collier, who is 11-4. And then we have the Battle of the 12 Win guys. Mike Grundy, how about that for a fighter's name? He's pretty Grundy. He is 12-1, fighting Movsar Evloev, who is 12-0. And we got Tanner Bozer, 18-6-1, fighting Rafael Pessoa, 10-1. Betch Kohea in the third fight of the night, 11-4-1, fighting Pani Kianzad, who I've never heard of. I don't know if I've seen her fight. It's 12-5. Second fight of the night, Ramazan Emaev, who is 18-4, fighting Nicholas Stoltz, who is 12-3. And we got Nathaniel Wood, 16-4, fighting John Castaneda, who is 17-4. Doesn't look like we have anybody. Well, one guy on this entire card has. Two guys, less than 10 fights total. That's it. Everybody else has more than 10 fights.
The Verdum fight has a little controversy in the undertone. I don't know, Rich, if you've heard about that, but Gus said that when he trained with Verdum, he broke his nose in sparring.
Oh, I did read
and
about
Verdum,
that,
and Verdum, I guess, just blew a fuse. No, he didn't. So maybe some fireworks there. I'll be tuning into that one.
Yeah. Somebody's nose might get broken again, or the first time, depending on who you believe. Anyway, we got some boxing to talk about too, but might as well square away the MMA before we do that, because we got a Bellator fight coming up tomorrow night, believe it or not. So that means I got to publish this episode real quick. This is not a Saturday waiting period anymore. But anyway, I'm just going to wait till it loads here. Alright, so weigh-ins are official. We have the main event is Ricky Bandejas and our old former guest, way back in the day, Sergio Pettis. He wasn't even in the UFC when we first interviewed him. He ended up getting there. But he came in at, I don't have his record in front of me, unfortunately, because I'm looking at it in my email, but came in at 134.7. Ricky Bandejas came in at 135.4. It's a bantamweight fight. And we got welterweights Jason Jackson versus Jordan Mean at 170. And Taiwan Claxton and J.J. Wilson at 147. It's a featherweight feature bout. Of course, Aaron Pico, the up-and-down fighter, that was supposed to be a wrecking ball. Turned out to get wrecked a couple times himself before he had it figured out. He's fighting Solo Hatley Jr. At 147. I've never heard of that guy. I don't know who he is. So, we'll see if he's worth the challenge. Then we got some preliminaries on Bellator's YouTube channel. The rest of them are on Paramount Network, so you don't have to worry about having DAZN and DAZN. Bellator's YouTube channel. We got Jake Smith at 170 and Mark Lemminger. And then we got Rafion Stotts and Cass Bell at bantamweight and heavyweights. Rudy Shafroth and Ross Hilton. That's Bellator's back in action card coming to us from Mohegan Sun, Connecticut. Last weekend in boxing, we had some pretty big fights on Tuesday, the 21st. All the big ones here are mentioned on BoxRec. We had one on Wednesday. Kenta Nakagawa beating Yuta Matsuo. That's kind of funny because that was literally the judge's name in one of my first Giants assignments of bankruptcy court. Judge Nakagawa. I'll never forget it because I had Ryan Sangalia on the show, and it was like way back when we first started the show, and I just used to just shoot the shit, and I had no plan or whatever, and I just always usually tried to get a guest, and I had Ryan Sangalia on there, and we were talking about the case, and he kept saying Nakagawa. That was funny. And then we just got Judge King. Nakagawa was listening to me all of a sudden. He came around to me, and then they go, "Oh, we need to get this guy Judge King from Hawaii." And we never heard what happened to Judge Nakagawa. Still to this day, I don't know if he just came down with cancer, or his workload got too jammed up, or whether they were paying him off to drop the case. I don't know. I hope he's all right. He was a good dude. Anyway, how's that for a tangent? Isaac Dogbo on Tuesday got a big win over Chris Avalos. Was this ESPN card?
Dogbo looked good. I watched the whole card. I missed the first few rounds of that fight. I had taken a call. But Dogbo, I was at his title-winning fight in 2018. And then, and he looked like a world beater. He looked unstoppable. And then in the second title defense, he ran into Emmanuel Navarrete. He lost the decision, and then they fought a rematch, and he got dissected. So now he's, on the comeback now. He's, really become a more complete fighter. He's got a better trainer now. I believe Barry Hunter is training him now. And, he had Avalos pretty handily beaten, and he finally dropped him and stopped him in the 8th round. But the story of the night is Edgar Belanger. Wow.
Over Eric.
Tom, did you see him?
Yeah, that was just brutal. You kind of thought that maybe, Moon coming from a small town in Georgia, okay, Moon looked good, but he looked a little more durable. And I was just kind of hoping, we'd go a few rounds. But, wow. And did you notice that Moon was aggressive for about the first 15 seconds? And
Moon said he was coming out of his corner.
And he did, until he ran into something. Then all of a sudden, it's like, uh-oh, this guy is everything they said he is. Oh, wow.
With a guy like that, it's funny. There was a fighter out of Philadelphia a couple years ago, and named Tyrone Brunson. And Brunson, I believe, still has the record for starting his career with consecutive knockouts, and Belanger is right on his heels now. I believe he started with 18 or 19 straight first-round knockouts. And I remember watching a couple of his, then they were starting to give him some airtime on ESPN and stuff, saying like, yo, this is a guy you might want to watch. He's going for this record. And I remember the first time that a guy got out of the first round, it was like, oh, my God, a guy got out of the first round. And you almost saw Brunson was like, oh, shit, like, what do we do now? They're like, and then he, did well. He won like third round maybe. But you could almost see, like, it was like that Mike Tyson era of invincibility kind of like left his sails. And then a fight or two after that, he had his first loss and it was stopped. I survived his early onslaught, and then he took him in the deep waters and he drowned him. And then Brunson ended up becoming more journeyman since that. He's had some good wins, but he's had some losses. So now the question is, same thing with Edgar Belanger. What happens when a guy gets him out of that first round? So you look at, like, if I was a trainer, if I'm a trainer now, what kind of strategy would I employ against him? So you saw where Eric Moon tried to engage him and back him up, and then he got hit, and then he immediately retreated. So it's almost like you look at it in two different ways. You look at it, the Kelly Pavlik method versus Miranda, when Miranda was just, ripping guys to shreds and beating them up and hurting them, and Pavlik he goes, I'm going to come straight at him, I'm going to back him up, and I'm going to out-bully the bully. And he did. And that was, it caught everybody off guard. It caught me off guard. I remember watching it live. And I was like, wow. So that's method number one. What I think you need to do, though, is you need to establish a jab. If I'm fighting a guy, it depends on the skill set of my fighter. If I'm fighting a guy, and I'm going to use, say, my own skill set, and I have boxing skills, it's not what brought me to the dance. So if I was training a guy like me, I would say, you have a heavy jab. It's not a fancy jab, but it's a heavy jab. Stick it right in the face. Catch his jab, stick your own, and force him back on his heels. Don't try to get into a firefight with him early. Be very conservative, but aggressive. Stick your jab, back him up. If I am fighting a guy that has good movement, and I'll use an example of Bernard Hopkins. Bernard Hopkins was a consummate boxer later in his career. Look at his fight against Felix Trinidad. You had a guy like Hopkins, I would say, soon as the guy tries to, to throw a punch, get off the angle. Don't be right in front of him. Get off the angle, whether it's to the left or the right, and throw a counterpunch. It doesn't have to be hard, but it has to make him respect saying, hey, if I set to throw a power punch, there is a chance that I am going to get hit in return. And that way you make the guy think and you make him tentative. What Belanger did the other night that I really liked, when he had Moon on the ropes, did you see that little move where he kind of used his left hand to pull Moon's guard down to land that right hand?
Yeah, that was really good. And you remember, Edgar did not start off in the amateurs with this kind of power. This just came. So I think And I'm thinking about what you said about Brunson, but and it's too early to tell for sure, but everything I've read and seen so far says Edgar knows he can't go on like this. And he doesn't seem like the kind of guy that's going to say, oh, God, now what am I going to do? Well, he can go back to his amateur experience where he has some boxing skills, and he almost seemed like he was anxious to show them. I mean, it's like, you remember literally when Jim Jacobs would say before the fight, he said, well, the problem is we just can't seem to get anyone to last more than a round, so Mike will get the rounds he needs, and then Mike would go out and finish up in a minute, and Jacobs would say, as I was saying, the problem, but I just don't think that'll be an issue with them. I mean, this is fascinating because if he keeps this up in another year or two, he'll be talking with Caleb Plant and David Benavidez. I mean, it's exciting.
Yeah. And that's a good problem to have, isn't it? You know, and speaking of fighters like that, tomorrow night, DAZN. It's the first fight back on DAZN in what, like 4 months now? And who better to see than Virgil Ortiz Jr., another 15-0, all by knockout kind of guy.
Nice.
Yep.
We also had a couple female fights, one Tuesday and one Saturday. Can't forget. Kim Clavel over Natalie Gonzalez on Tuesday, and then Nina Meinke and over Adina Kiss on Saturday, the 18th.
Were those the fights in Germany? I didn't get to see any of those.
How about Kim? Did you see Kim's fight?
I saw Kim the other night. Looked very good. And, you know, really, I mean, even some of her backstory was interesting. I enjoyed even listening to her going into the fight.
Cool. Yeah, I didn't get to catch any of that broadcast.
I mean, and like I said, she won every round pretty handily. I didn't get to see anything on Saturday because I think the fight was, from like 3:30 in the afternoon, and I was doing other things. I had a client over there.
All right. Well, Friday we have some boxing matches this week. China, Poland.
You know what I enjoy? I enjoy looking at BoxRec now.
Yeah.
Like when you're looking at all these fights they're having in Vegas, it actually says on there the bubble. It doesn't say Jim Grant. It says the bubble.
By the way, California is now open for boxing and MMA. That just happened. There's
that's where Virgil Ortiz is fighting for.
Already a card.
He is
Fantasy Springs Casino, Indio, California. Virgil is 15-0, fighting Samuel Vargas, who's 31-5-2. So, definition of a journeyman there.
And like I said, I got to see Ortiz fight last year in Las Vegas, and he put on a statement because Mauricio Herrera is one of those guys. He's tough, he's skilled, he's underrated, he is a spoiler. He's like, I remember he made Danny Garcia really look bad, and Ortiz went in there and I mean he put on a bombshell. I mean the whole crowd at the T-Mobile Arena last year was like mouths were wide open. Holy shit. So and looking at the guy he's fighting, like I said, we're looking at a quality opponent here in Samuel Vargas. Vargas, you just said 31-5, 2 draws. And his 5 losses, 2 of them in by stoppage. He has a split decision loss a year ago to Luis Collazo, always a tough fighter. He has a loss to Amir Khan by unanimous decision, and he had Khan down in that fight. He has a TKO loss to Danny Garcia, and I remember watching that one. Errol Spence stopped him. So look at the guys that beat him. He's lost to some good fighters. The only name I didn't recognize was Pablo Munguia or something Munjua, and that was 7 years ago. So since that, I mean, he's been on a world-class level with the Errol Spences, with the Danny Garcias, Amir Khan, Luis Palazzo. So obviously he's going to be the B-side opponent here, but it's going to be no pushover, and this is a chance for Ortiz to, hey, I'm main eventing now, and you're going to want to watch me.
All right. Well, it's good good little undercard on that one too. So we have what else we got on that? We have another junior on that card. We have Shane Mosley Jr.
Shane Mosley Jr. on the card.
15-3.
Yeah, he's 15-3.
Facing Jeremy Ramos, who's 11-8. And then we got somebody's always got to go. Light flyweight female title fight. WBC silver female light flyweight title. Miranda versus Cianisa. Estrada versus Adkins. 18-0.
You're on box track right now, right? Did you see the picture of Shane Mosley Jr.?
No, but I can check it out.
Dude, it looks like his father's mugshot. It looks like his father, but it looks like a mugshot.
Check that out. Yeah, it does. little different, but yeah, I could see it. We also have Hector Valdez coming in undefeated at 12-0, fighting Josu Morales, who's 500, 11-4. Speaking of 500, baseball's back tonight. Right into a rain delay.
Yes.
You gotta love it. Waiting for the Yankees.
Went into a rain delay?
Yeah, Yankees. They're supposed to have the big spotlight game on ESPN tonight. It's a rain delay.
Did you see? I'm not watching the game. But did you see Dr. Fauci throwing out the first pitch?
No.
Oh, they changed, and my one friend posted it, and my one friend, he has literally the best one-liners. He's a Jewish kid, right? So when he was saying something like, "Oh, we're going to start putting circumcisions, but we're going to start airing them. People have to, pay to be on TV. It's going to be pay per Jew." It's a great sense of humor. So his thing tonight was he shows the video of Dr. Fauci throwing this pitch, which was like about 6 feet wide of the the catcher. He goes, "Oh, look, he's social distancing his pitch."
Nice. Well, we have fights on Saturday too, worth mentioning. There's actually some titles on the line. That's not really big ones, but foreign country titles anyway. Light heavyweight title in Poland. The vacant Republic of Poland light heavyweight title. Marek Matija, he's 17-1 at light heavyweight, fighting Pavel Stepien, who's 13-0-1. Well, at least they have records that deserve a title of some sort. One of them's undefeated, one of them's almost undefeated. Usually you get those obscure titles in there, like junk fights, junk records. Anyway, the big fights on Saturday are in the United Kingdom. Heavyweights Joe Joyce, undefeated at 10-0, fighting Nico Walsh, who is 20-3. Lost 3 out of his last 6. And then we have a little bit of a lighter weight, super bantamweights, for the Southern Area super bantamweight title. Chris Bork, 7-0, and Ramez Mahmoud, who is 11-0. 7-11, undefeated.
Let me ask you this, and you may know this, you may not know this. And I see Joe Joyce's last fight was, ironically, just about a year ago. He beat Brian by Jennings out of Philadelphia. I like that I know Brian. And that fight, one judge had it very close, 115-12. The other two had it wider scores, 118, 109, 117, 110. Can't really say I remember that fight. He also has a TKO over Bermain Stavern about a year and a half ago. I guess this was after Stavern was really washed up after Deontay Wilder polaxed him out of there a couple times. My question is, for fights that are abroad now, whether it's China, Japan, United Kingdom, Mexico, and not even Mexico as much because that's still considered South America, or that's considered North America. What the hell am I saying? But for fights abroad, what are they doing for the crowds? Are they empty arenas as well?
Well, the first one we mentioned, I think, was in South America somewhere before Brazil really started to have a heavy hit from the virus, and it was Nicaragua, I believe.
Right.
And they did have a crowd, but there was folded seats down in between the seats. So that was the first I heard of. There is talk of getting crowds by Barry Hearn, I believe, at some point, but I don't think most of the arenas have crowds over there or anything.
Right, and like I said, because I know Europe right now is really on the downswing. It's like the United States in certain areas are still heavy. So when you see cases every day, you're seeing the majority of them in certain areas, whether that's Texas, California, Florida, where it's like New York, Jersey, Pennsylvania Pennsylvania's been arguing back and forth. They're saying like, oh, because they're open, cases are going up. Then there's the governor walking arm in arm with protesters. And it's like, well, make up your mind. Is it because people are drinking beer? Or because people are, running around in packs of thousands, on top of each other?
Right.
Don't get me started, though. So that's what I'm curious, over in Europe, what are they doing? Are they going to say, okay, we're going to have limited capacity and wear masks? I know right now, just for example, with the NFL, they're coming up with ideas like Philadelphia was one of the ones that says, no, you can't have any large public gatherings until February of 2021. No parades.
How about that? How about that Washington football team? How about that?
Yeah. I'm going to send you guys a video. This Italian comedian I watch, and he really makes fun of everything. But he was talking, he goes, what the hell? He goes, what are these people thinking? Hey, how about the Washington Pigeons? Now that'll offend bird lovers. He goes, how about this? He goes, how about the Washington football team? That's a great idea. He goes, what the hell? He goes, you know what? He goes, well, I want to change every team's name. He goes, I'm Italian. I'm 5'6". He goes, I don't like the team named the New York Giants because that's offensive to short people. And he goes, and the Jets, that's false advertising because they're slow as shit. They suck.
The New York football little people. How about that?
Yeah. He goes, I don't like the Buffalo Bills because people named Bill remind me of people from the 70s with porn mustaches and wearing Asics shoes and their assholes.
Yeah, there you go.
I'll have to send you some of the stuff. This guy, I watch religiously every night. And, he'll play himself, and then he'll play his aunt, his uncle, and his father. And he'll play all the parts and his videos. I mean, I'll just watch him on a loop.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I've seen a couple of them that you posted already.
Yeah. Probably on my page you've probably seen them because I posted some of them.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Well, his uncle looks like your dad, too.
Well, I think his father looks more like my dad.
Oh, is it a father?
More of a caricature.
Okay.
Yeah, the father. And what are the odds?
Yeah.
What are the odds? There's four names. Right? It's the father and son are both Anthony or Tony.
Yeah.
The uncle is Vinny.
Oh.
And the mother or the aunt is Lucia, which is my mom's real given first name.
Oh wow.
She goes by Barbara, but her real name is Lucia. So Tony, Anthony, Vinny, and Lucia. What are the fucking odds?
You got to meet this guy. It's your second cousin, twice removed.
Yeah, really.
Anyway, let me check the alerts before we go. Fresh alerts here coming in.
Yeah, while you're doing that, with Philadelphia, they just canceled the Rocky Run, which I was supposed to do in November, and now and I understand they're trying to still recoup and save some of the money on it. So they're giving the people the option to do a virtual one. Well, I don't really know what it means. You know, I don't know if they send you like a sensor or something, and you run 3 miles or 10 miles or 13 miles, and you get a medal out of it. I don't know. It personally doesn't sound like a lot of fun to me because, hey, I run all the time, and I pretty much hate it. I like doing it in the crowd and putting the show on and dressing up like, you know, and acting like an ass and meeting people and doing photos and all that. Running by myself every day, what the hell's the fun of that? But that's canceled. The Mummers Parade's canceled. Protests are still okay because it's quote-unquote freedom of speech. So we're trying to say, like, oh yeah, we can't have any Eagles games, we can't have fans in the stands. But then the Eagles are like, well, that's technically private property. Now trying to say, like, well, can we do it with a, you know, limited capacity of like 65,000 seat stadium? Can we maybe make it like 12,000, 1/5 of the, you know, capacity? I know the Green Bay Packers have said something like along the same lines. The Giants and Jets that both play at the Meadowlands have both come out and said, nope, no fans. So, the baseball teams, I don't know if you heard about this, but like I know with the Phillies, they're allowing fans for like $40 to buy a cardboard cutout of themselves, a high-definition cardboard cutout of themselves. I guess you send a vote in, and they make a cardboard cutout of you, and then they put you on a seat, and I guess if a foul ball hits your cardboard cutout, you then, they send the foul ball. But I'm like, I want to go one up, you know, because, you know, I do everything over the top. You guys know me. I'm like, no,
can you buy like 100?
Cardboard cutout.
Can you get like 100 of yourself and be like, increase the odds?
Well, I mean, I guess if you want to spend like $400 and some dollars maybe, or however much that would be. But here's my thought process. No. I don't want a cardboard cutout of my torso, you know, sitting in the seat. I want the full package, head to toe, life-size, front and back, and put me up. I'll pay an extra $12, put an overpriced cardboard beer in my hands, and stand me in the one section where I was in. Don't put me in a seat. I haven't sat in a seat in 8 years. Why am I going to start now? My cardboard cutout doesn't sit in seats. Put me where I always stand. People are like, you're serious, aren't you? I'm like, goddamn right I am. In fact, you know what? I'm gonna double down on that statement. I think the Phillies should pay me for the honor of using my likeness at the stadium.
There you go. Wow. As your free lawyer, I will draw up that contract.
Thank you.
Anyway, here's a weird one. I just saw this in the alerts. British boxer Billy Joe Saunders has had his suspension lifted, but was still fined £15,000, $19,000 for appearing to condone domestic violence. This all stems back to a video of himself using a punching bag to advise men how to hit their female partners if they argue during the coronavirus lockdown. The WBO super middleweight champion said at the time he made a silly mistake, and his promoter Eddie Hearn described the clip as idiotic and unacceptable. Saunders was also criticized by domestic abuse charities. So they had a hearing on Wednesday and found him guilty of misconduct and ordered his fine to be donated to charities. However, he was cleared to fight. He also said he would donate £25,000 to a domestic abuse charity after the video surfaced. So that's a weird one. Weird story of the week, I guess. Former NBA star Nate Robinson is going to fight YouTube star Jake Paul on the Mike Tyson versus Roy Jones Jr. undercard. So says CBSSports.com. So we'll have to see how that goes. I mean, we've always been curious, like, what would happen if these other sports, these athletes from these other sports came over and did boxing. And now you have a situation where it's more and more possible, especially these sports that will not have seasons. hockey players. Imagine that. Imagine if hockey doesn't have a season and they start fighting. Jesus, we're all in trouble.
Right.
But,
what,
yeah.
what are they going to say to like hockey players? It's like you can't fight. Like I know in baseball you can't high five or you can't spit. What is it? Hockey you can't fight. You know, football. I know they're telling people like, oh, you can't exchange jerseys after the game. So it's like, and one guy from the Eagles is like, oh, we can tackle each other for 60, but we can't stand for 30 seconds to exchange a jersey.
Yeah. How about that? Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see how it all unfolds with the other sporting teams and whether anybody sues, over it. Because of, maybe somebody gets sick in the clubhouse, spreads it to everybody else, and what happens if somebody gets seriously sick, or dies because they got COVID in the clubhouse or, in the locker room?
Yeah.
So you have an already hurting sport get sued by the family, and it's toast. So I don't know what kind of waivers are being signed behind the scenes, but I think you're going to see a lot of people opt out of it. Like the NBA is not a full team situation, and I heard the Toronto Blue Jays actually got denied by Canada to actually be allowed to play. So it's going to be very weird, no matter how it proceeds. But speaking of weird, Derek Chisora is in dialogue with Bellator MMA. But he's still focused on Alexander Usyk. He has to be, I guess. He has to say he is, anyway. But Scott Coker has confirmed there is dialogue. We'd love to have him. If he has time in his schedule to compete in MMA, we'd love to put him in there and test him out, said Coker. Depending on his schedule, we'd love to get him into our rotation if time permits. He has so many boxing fights, but it is still a different experience to fight with little gloves, and in the cage would be an adjustment. I picture a fun opponent for him to compete with. Let's get it on. Alright. So, that could be interesting. Very interesting.
Hey, what's up, guys?
Sorry, guys.
Hey, Dad, what's up?
Shit.
You trying to find a clip?
Yes, I am.
What happened now?
There we go. I'll send this to you guys. You guys are going to kick that. Got everybody being offended, which brings up a few Italian things, which I kind of find amusing.
Right. All right, well, I guess that about does it for us for big news, fights, and events. It's picking up a little speed. Things are coming up and opening it up. And doesn't appear to be going backwards, except for we do appear to be heading for another stimulus package anyway. I don't know how much the checks are going to be this time, but they might shoot us out a little bit more free money if we're lucky.
You know what else I heard today? And like I said, I don't know how true this is, because
they're not going to lock us down.
It's hard to believe anything you hear anymore. Yeah. But I heard they might be investigating some people for what do you call unemployment fraud.
Really? I wouldn't be surprised.
I heard that. I don't know how true that is. Just something I heard. I guess people have been abusing it. I don't know.
Yeah, a lot of weird shit's going on with China too. They're hiding a fugitive in California there, and then they burned some documents or some shit in the Texas consulate, so they were just like, shut it down. Yeah, it's getting tense. Shit's getting real.
Yeah.
But yeah, hopefully we won't have to deal with any kind of warfare from that. Any kickbacks on top of the corona. So we don't need that now. But we'll see how it turns out. Anyway, till next week. Thanks for stopping by,
All right.
and we will.
And
Keep everybody updated.
You know, Tom's going to say we can fight, but we actually have fights to enjoy.
Yes, we do.
Good thing, you know?
We don't have a Jesus fight of the week this week. We don't have a mismatch of the week, but we got fights to talk about. We'll get them back soon enough. There's actually not a lot of fights in Mexico now that I mention it. For this week. There's like one fight card in Mexico. Usually it's like 15. Anyway. See you next week, guys.
All right. Have a great weekend, guys.
Adios.